So the Black Lives Matter narrative is being perpetuated by powerful people, but it's false. The Black Lives Matter narrative is false. Here are the actual facts about systemic racism in policing. The Department of Justice's Bureau of Justice Statistics issued a report. This report was designed to answer whether police were arresting people at disproportionate rates based on crime reports. Okay, this is a really interesting way of determining whether there is systemic racism in arrests specifically. Because, for example, if Black people commit 30% of a certain crime and they account for 60% of arrests for that certain crime, there's a disparity between the percentage of crimes committed and the percentage of arrests happening, right? So you look and you say, well, is the element that causes that disproportionate rate, is that race? Similarly, if the shoe were on the other foot and white people committed 30% of crimes, but they were only arrested for 15% of that type of crime committed, you would ask, well, what element causes that disproportionate rate? And you might ask, is that because of race, right? So this is a good metric to determine whether there's systemic racism inherent to arrests in our nation. Well, according to the Wall Street Journal, the Department of Justice report concluded, and I quote, "There was no statistically significant difference by race between how likely people were to commit serious violent crimes and how likely they were to be arrested. For example, for non-fatal violent crimes, 35% of reported offenders were Black and 33% of arrests were Black Americans." So actually, the number of arrests was slightly lower percentage-wise than the percentage of Black Americans committing those crimes, right? So there's not that disparity that there would be if there were systemic racism in arrests. Okay, now I know that that's not the only metric. I know that's not the only metric to determine whether there's systemic racism in police. You can talk about fatal police shootings. You can talk about non-lethal use of force, but disparity in arrest percentages justified against the percentage of crimes committed by a certain racial demographic, that's a very good metric to determine whether there's systemic racism in police interactions, okay? The true number that's disproportionate that the Black Lives Matter movement will not talk about. They will not talk about this. In fact, they'll accuse you of engaging in whataboutism. They'll accuse you of being a racist if you mention this. They will not talk about the crimes committed by Black Americans compared to the percentage of the population, the percentage of crimes committed by Black Americans compared to the percentage of the Black population in our country. This is where the disparity lies. This is where there is a disproportionate number. In 2018, Black Americans made up 53% of homicide offenders. They committed 60% of robberies in our country, yet they only account for 13% of the US population. That is an important disparity. That is a disproportionate rate. But the Black Lives Matter movement won't ask why. They won't let you ask why. They don't want to fix that. They don't want to know the reality of the situation. Instead, they want to perpetuate false narratives.